there we go. So in Calderdale, this area, there's not been a lot of survey work done, or there hadn't been, but Hardcastle Crags has got these grassland areas, which are grazed grasslands. They're kind of in the middle of this map, and two quite distinctly separate areas were surveyed and found to be internationally important. In 2013, the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust land, which are again are some grazed fields, were also surveyed and found to be internationally important. So that was it. That was the important areas for fungi in Calderdale, a place owned by the National Trust and a place owned by Yorkshire Wildlife Trust. And nobody thought much about anything else. But obviously, if those places are important, then other places will be important too. So our local record centre, working with Andy McClay from Natural England, developed some criteria. And then I went out surveying and located various other sites that were important in one way or another. Some of them SSI grade, others nationally important. So then when this job came up, I got the job, and my remit was to try and identify ancient grasslands supporting fungal populations around the Hardcastle Crags sites. So this kind of line is about 3 kilometres away from the Hardcastle Crags site. And so initially I just walked around the area, looked for unimproved grasslands, and then struck up conversations with landowners to see whether or not they would let me on. And the general vibe was, no, they wouldn't let me on. People didn't want me surveying their land because they didn't know where the information was going to go, and they were very reticent. So I agreed complete confidentiality, and then I was able to get onto lots of sites who were happy for me to survey as long as I didn't tell anybody what I found. But what that does mean is that I was able to gather a lot of data and establish lots of interesting stuff. So ancient grasslands are the things that I'm trying to identify. And as Claire was saying, some of those ancient grasslands are irreplaceable habitat. Once it's lost, it's going to take hundreds of years to repair. Some of it is botanically diverse, and I can go and I can do a botanical survey and establish whether something's an important grassland or not. But a lot of it looks like this. This is the typical landscape in this area. It's sheep grazed, it's fairly tight grazed. Now, actually, if you take the sheep off here for a year, then you suddenly get this flush of flowers and plants. But in this condition, it's very difficult to see what's there. But in the autumn, we get this amazing display of fungi. And we've got the moors just at the top there, and they generally have got a lot of moisture in them, and that's just kind of moving down through the landscape. And so the soil, which is quite thin, is kept moist, and that's great for fungi. We've got a problem at the moment because we've had so little rain and the ground's very dry, and now things are just about starting to come, but it's few and far between. So Shaggy fungi is what I'm looking for, as Claire described, those 5 different groups. Some quick pictures, clubs and corals, colourful wax caps that people know well and have been recorded well. And interestingly, about 20 of these species are international data species, but when it comes to something like the Entoloma, then only about 4 of those are, and yet to my mind they are potentially rarer and have more specific habitat requirements. So I think some work needs to be done on that. I think part of the problem with the Entoloma is that they are difficult, and so it may be that there isn't enough data about their locations and populations to do that work. But you can see from these images that they also can be quite different looking, different colours, different forms, and they are possible to get to grips with, but it takes some work. And then we've got the earth tongues, and again here there's 4 different examples there of earth tongues of different genera, and they are again not doable to species, but you can separate them out to some degree in the field, so you can get an idea of the diversity. And then here we've got dermaloma group. I've also included in here what is now called Disoderma paradoxa, only recently changed its name from Squamini to paradoxa, which is the powder-cap strangler, and that's a UK red data book species. So when I actually got permission to get on, I managed to survey 135 fields across 50 landholdings, and I did one survey of each field. So I just went on whenever I could, and I did a survey, and basically I didn't go back to that field again. And Orton Watling estimate that a single survey like that detects about 25% of mycota of a site. Now, that might be, I don't know, that might apply strictly to woodland sites or to any site. I think some of the sites I went to, I probably detected a lot more than that, but others maybe not even a fraction of that. I think it really depends on the conditions and the time that you go. But overall, I recorded 94 Chegdee species, which seemed like quite a lot, 3 of which were UK bat priority species, 4 UK red data book species, 1 endangered red list species, and 27 vulnerable red list species, most of which are waxcaps, and potentially 2 species new to the UK. So, you know, fantastic. These results that I got were unexpected, effectively, but just show what is there in fields around that just haven't been looked in. You know, so there's some amazing stuff to find out there. This is the Microglossum rufescens, kindly identified by Mal, who's here, and these are all Entoloma atromadidum, which I found quite frequently, actually. This is one of the big blue pink gills that's been separated out. This is another one of the separated out big blue pink gills, which is Ocreopunoloides, something like that. And then these are all the red data book species. So we've got the powder-cap strangler, straw club, short spored, earth tongue, and over here we've got the skinny club. So this, interestingly, is the vulnerable species. No, not the vulnerable species, the other one, whatever it was I said. This is the rarer one. But I find this quite commonly. And in its page on the IUCN page, it describes it as a coastal species. And then Butman describes it as an Arctic alpine species, neither of which I am. I'm slap bang in the middle in the low hills. But again, I find this quite frequently, and so I presume that we will find this over the South Pennines and the Dales fairly frequently. So this is Glutinoglossum triseptatum, which Mal has identified as potentially this. If so, it could be a first for the UK. And these Glutinoglossums, I guess, have been worked on quite a lot, and so these species are popping up. It used to all be Glutinoglossum glutinosum, so they've been separated out. So finding a new species there is maybe more easy. This one is Camaraphilopsis atrovelutina, which I think has been recorded in Scandinavia a fair bit, but doesn't seem to have been recorded before in the UK. So that was a nice find. And again, that's one which I found several times. So 2 of the sites that I recorded turned out to be probably the most important sites in the world for a particular red list species, one of which was Dermaloma magicum, which Claire knows well, I think. And on this, I found 20 locations across about 4 fields, all, you know, separated out. So I think the other best site has got 2 locations, so really quite stunning. And that's supposedly known from about 30 sites across Europe, although I think it comes up in DNA work quite a lot. Now, I've already found a new site for Dermaloma magicum this year, despite the fact that there's hardly anything coming up. So, and I think I found 4 different sites where this was. So again, it seems to be much more common than it's thought to be. And here, the Jubilee Waxcap. At this site, there were 60 distinct fruiting areas for that, which is just phenomenal. Previously, when I found it, it's just been one small clump. So the of these sites, the 15 sites, 10 of them were triple SI grade in at least one category, because you can reach triple SI in any one of the C, H, E, G, D. 3 of the sites met triple SI threshold in 4 categories, and 1 of them qualified in all 5. And that's based on just one survey of each field. And so a lot of these sites that will be designated have been surveyed every year for 20 years. And the sites can be very different in size. So my smallest site that qualified as triple SI qualified in 4 different categories, was about half an acre. But then some of the other sites were 40 hectares. So it's really, there's not a lot of kind of consistency there. So this is my general overview of my data. So the red boxes are triple SI grade sites, meaning triple SI in each one of those categories. And then across the bottom, you can see that the sites that have got at least one of those. But I think the thing that's interesting to note is that every single site, irrespective of how good it appeared to be, had at least one IUCN red data list species that was vulnerable. And of the poor sites, this site in September, which doesn't look particularly good, had Gemelloma magicum on it. And then the site in December, which was the last site I looked at, and actually I looked at it on December the 20th. That was when I looked at it at a time when everything else was frozen solid and nothing was appearing. And there were all those Jubilee Waxcaps. So yeah, basically, I think we've got a lot of land which potentially is very important, internationally important. And we're in this time now where we're looking at land sharing and land sparing, rewilding, tree planting. There's a lot of land use change going on. It's very imminent. And my project now is very much focused on looking at land which is up for land use change and then doing assessments on that land. Because all of these fields and farms that I looked at last year probably are going to continue as they are. Everything's going to be fine. It's been fine for hundreds of years, and it's going to carry on, hopefully, that way. But there are lots of other areas, and particularly a lot of Yorkshire waterland, which I'll be looking at, which is up for tree planting. So I'll be carrying out surveys on those, and then based on what I find, hopefully some of that will be amended. But the problem then that I've got is that this year is a bad year. So far, it's been very dry. There's not so much stuff around. What I've been able to do is, working with the local records centre, I've changed the criteria so that if we find one species from the IUCN red list that's vulnerable or endangered, that then meets the criteria for a local wildlife site in this area. And my feeling is that even in a very poor year, I should be able to find on a good site 1 or 2 of those species. So that should give us a little bit of leeway of time to then carry out, fuller surveys. So that, I think, is all I have to say. And really all I want to stress is that these places are out there. We just don't know where they are. And so we really need to get on site, do the survey work, and we may find new species. In fact, I possibly have found a new species already this year. I found an Entoloma, which I sent to Roy Watley, and he didn't know what it was. So I sent it to Maciel, and he also didn't know what it was. So he's now got it in the post. He's going to do some DNA work on it. He's going to analyze it. It could be a new species for the country, or it could be a new species for science. Either way, that would be fantastic. But it just shows that there's so much out there that we are as yet unaware of, and so many great sites. So it's really good that this project is going ahead and it's going to be able to cover a massive area, actually.